I've spent most of my adult life trying to separate myth from biology, superstition from ecology. But what I found in those woods blurred that line in ways I still can't explain. Day 14. That's the last entry I ever made in my field log. I remember because the pen shook so badly I couldn't keep my handwriting straight. The sun had gone down hours earlier, but the forest didn't go quiet. It changed tone. Every sound, the creak of branches, the drip of dew, echoed like it was inside my own chest. I was sitting by the fire, reviewing thermal readings, when the forest went still. Completely still. The kind of silence that has weight to it. Heavy, deliberate. And then came the smell. Copper. Wet earth. If you've ever cleaned an animal, you'd recognize it. I turned toward the tree line, and my headlamp hit something reflective. 2 points of light, far apart, high above the ground. At first, I thought they were eyes from a deer or an owl. But then they blinked, sideways. It took a second for my brain to process that movement, because nothing natural moves like that. Not here. Not anywhere I've studied. The fire popped, and for a fraction of a second, I thought it stepped closer. Branches cracked. Not from weight, but from intent. Like someone walking carefully, knowing exactly where you are. I wanted to call out, to make some kind of noise, but my throat wouldn't move. Then I heard it. Soft, almost curious. My own name, spoken in my voice. And just like that, the forest started breathing again. Crackle fades, ambient silence. That was the night I stopped being a researcher and started becoming part of something else. My name is Daniel Cross, 41 years old, former wildlife biologist, or at least that's what I used to be before the lines started blurring between what's real and what we tell ourselves has to be real. For the last decade, I've been working independently, traveling from one remote ecosystem to another, recording reports that most scientists refuse to touch. People like to call it cryptid hunting, but that word always bothered me. It makes the whole thing sound like a hobby for people who've watched too many movies. For me, it started differently. It started with patterns, numbers. Every few months, somewhere across North America, there's a cluster of unexplained wildlife events. Deer carcasses with no clear predator markings, strange prints that appear overnight, or forests that suddenly go silent for days. Those silences fascinated me more than anything, because silence in nature isn't absence, it's communication. When a forest goes quiet, it's usually for a reason. A fire, a predator, or something else moving through that doesn't belong. That's what drew me to the Timberline Reserve, a 300,000-acre stretch of protected forest near the northern border. It's one of those places that doesn't show up on casual hiking maps. But if you ask the locals, everyone's got a story about it. Some say it's cursed. Others say it's sacred. Either way, it's avoided. I didn't go there looking for monsters. I went there because, for the first time, the data itself was acting strange. Trail cams from a research group went dark for 12 nights straight, only to start recording again with full batteries and no trace of interference. Animals vanished from migration paths, and at least 3 locals went missing that same season, all near the same valley. So I packed my gear, a thermal camera, motion sensors, and a week's worth of supplies. I told myself it would be like every other field study. Record, observe, log, leave. That's how it always went before. But this time, the forest didn't want to be observed. I arrived at Timberline Reserve on a cold morning in late June. The air up there always feels older, heavier somehow. Even the tree line looks different. Thicker trunks, moss so deep it swallows the sound of your boots. The plan was simple. Spend 2 weeks documenting nocturnal wildlife patterns along a stretch of river known as Wolf's Spine. The name, according to the locals, came from a ridge that looked like vertebrae rising through the fog. According to maps, though, that ridge shouldn't even exist. It's listed as lowland terrain. That was my first red flag. Not the stories, not the disappearances, just the geography. Before heading out, I interviewed 3 residents from a nearby town: a retired ranger, a park volunteer, and a logger. Each of them gave me the same advice. Don't set up camp near the ridge. Not unless you want the woods watching you. I laughed it off at the time. People say things like that in isolated communities. Folklore fills in the gaps where science hasn't reached yet. But when 3 different people, all from different backgrounds, repeat the same warning almost word for word, it sticks with you. I wasn't there to chase legends. I was there to collect patterns, to find out why every thermal camera along that ridge had been picking up heat signatures in human shape. 7 feet tall, moving against the wind, and always vanishing mid-frame. I had 4 cameras of my own, each with night vision, motion tracking, and a GPS beacon. I logged coordinates, tested batteries, calibrated lenses. Everything was by the book. I'd done this dozens of times before, and always come back with data, not stories. That's the thing about field work. It either humbles you or it lies to you. That forest did both. So I set camp just before dusk. The first night was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. But quiet still counts as data. Pause. Subtle wind sound. By the second night, though, I realized Day 3. I started noticing things I couldn't explain. Small, harmless things at first. My traps were still in place, but the bait kept disappearing. No drag marks, no prints. It was like something lifted the food, clean and deliberate, without touching the ground. The camera log showed nothing unusual, but around midnight, one frame caught a flicker. A shadow crossing the lens, thin and tall, moving faster than the shutter speed should have allowed. I dismissed it as a recording error. Still, I marked it in my notes. By day 4, the forest's rhythm had changed. Usually, you can tell what time it is by the soundscape. Insects after dusk, birds before dawn. But here, the silence came at random hours, as if someone kept turning the volume down. Even the river sounded distant, like it was moving away from me. That evening, I followed a trail of claw marks etched into a fallen pine. They were deep, 6, maybe 7 inches across, but uneven, as if whatever made them was testing the tree instead of attacking it. That's not animal behavior. Predators leave intention behind their marks. This felt curious. I remember writing that word in my log, curious. It looks so naive now. Day 6. Found footprints near the perimeter of my camp. human-shaped, but too wide, too flat. Each print was perfectly aligned, heel to toe, like something pacing around the tent in circles. The soil was cold, frozen beneath the surface. That's impossible in June. I checked my trail cams again. All 4 were dead. Not drained, dead. The power indicators were still green, but no data had been recorded for the last 12 hours, as if the forest itself had switched them off. That night, I woke to the faintest sound, something brushing against the canvas of my tent. Not claws, not paws, fingers. I froze. No breathing outside, no crunch of leaves. Just the slow slide of pressure against the fabric, tracing the outline of my shoulder. When I finally unzipped the flap and stepped out, the air was thick and cold. The kind of cold that feels selective. My thermometer read 41 degrees. It had been 65 before I went to sleep. I swept my headlamp through the trees. Nothing. No prints. No movement, just the steady drip of condensation from the branches above. I tried to convince myself it was wind, or maybe an animal brushing past. Raccoons, maybe. But then I realized something. There was no wind. Not even the leaves were moving. Day 7. I wrote in my field notes. Unidentified activity continues near camp. Possible mimicry of human behavior. Even writing it down felt wrong, because deep down, I knew. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to hurt me. Not yet. It was trying to understand me.
They say every forest has its own kind of silence, but the one beyond that rusted gate was different. It wasn't quiet. It was watching. I remember stepping past that tree line, the air changing almost immediately. The warmth of the sun didn't seem to reach the ground anymore. The temperature dropped just enough for goosebumps to form along my arms, and the smell of pine was overpowered by something older, wet earth and decay. The ground was uneven, padded with centuries of fallen needles that muffled every step. I could barely hear my own boots pressing into it, and that bothered me more than it should have. Because in a place like that, silence doesn't mean peace. It means you're not supposed to be there. My flashlight beam sliced through the haze, landing on trees so tall they vanished into the fog. Each trunk seemed scarred, claw marks, some deep enough to reveal pale inner bark, the kind of marks no deer could have made. And then, the sound. Not loud, not even clear, just a distant rhythm, like 2 stones knocking together. 1, pause, then 2. It echoed from somewhere deep ahead, repeating in a pattern that felt deliberate. I told myself it was just branches moving in the wind, but the air was still, completely still. As I walked further, the trees grew closer together. The canopy swallowed what little light remained, until my flashlight became the only thing keeping the darkness from taking over entirely. And yet, it felt like something beyond that beam was moving with me. Not behind, beside, pacing. The radio on my belt crackled once, then hissed dead. No static, no voice, just a single, clipped tone before silence. I tapped it, spoke into it, but all I got was the soft click of my own voice fading into nothing. That's when I realized I'd gone too far. The trail I'd been following,
The faint path of trampled leaves had disappeared. It was gone, like the forest had closed itself around me. I turned in a slow circle, trying to find my bearings, but everything looked the same. Trees like pillars, fog threading between them, the faint impression of movement just beyond the reach of my light. And then I saw it, hanging from a low branch. A strip of faded red cloth, torn at the edge, fluttering just slightly as though something had brushed past it. I reached out to touch it, and that's when I noticed the branch wasn't just low. It was bent, like something heavy had been hanging from it. Every instinct told me to leave. But there's something about human curiosity. It doesn't die when it should. I told myself I'd just take a few more steps, see where that cloth came from, maybe find whoever left it. That was the lie that carried me deeper, past the last trace of the world I knew, and into the part of the forest where the rules didn't apply anymore. Because once I passed that ridge, once the sound of the forest changed again, low, guttural, rhythmic like breathing, I knew there was no turning back. That was the point of no return. The deeper I went, the more the forest felt alive. Not in the way trees and animals make a place feel alive, but aware. Like it had a pulse that thudded just beneath the soil. I remember checking my watch, 6:43 p.m. Not late, but the light told a different story. Everything past the ridge looked trapped in a permanent twilight, the kind you see just before a storm. My flashlight caught faint mist drifting low between the trunks, thick enough to hide my boots. I kept telling myself to mark my way back, but the trees shifted. I know how that sounds, but the landmarks I noted, the crooked pine, the stump covered in moss, they weren't where I left them. Every direction felt wrong. That's when I noticed it, the smell. It hit like a wall. Wet copper. Blood. It wasn't fresh, but it wasn't old either. A sickly sweetness clung to it, heavy enough to taste on my tongue. I followed it. I shouldn't have, but I did. The beam of my flashlight trembled slightly as I moved forward. That's when it caught something pale among the roots. I thought it was a deer until I saw the hands. Human. Both arms twisted at angles that didn't make sense. Skin gray and rigid. The face was half buried in the mud, but what I could see was wrong. The mouth hung open too wide, like the jaw had been forced down. I crouched, every part of me screaming not to, and noticed something carved into the bark of the tree above the body. A mark. A handprint, made not with paint, but pressed into the wood itself. Like the tree had softened, let the hand sink in, and then sealed again. I backed away, shaking now, and that's when I heard it. A breath. Not mine, not close, but right there. Slow, dragging inhalations. The kind that sound like someone trying to remember how to breathe. I swung the flashlight toward the sound. The beam hit nothing but trees. But for half a second, I swear, one of those trees blinked. It wasn't bark. It was skin. Gray, stretched, and slick under the beam of my light. The shape stepped backward, blending into the dark. And I realized I hadn't been alone for hours. It had been there the entire time, watching, following, waiting for me to see it. And when it moved again, fast, low, silent, the forest went completely quiet. No birds, no insects. Even the wind stopped. All I could hear was my heartbeat and the crunch of something circling just outside my light. I froze, afraid to turn my back, afraid to move at all. Then, from the fog behind me, a whisper. Not in English. It was the same rhythm as the stones I'd heard earlier. 1. Pause. 2. Except now, it was breathing the sounds, imitating them. The forest wanted me to believe it was a voice, but it wasn't. It was something learning how to sound human, and in that moment, I knew it wasn't hunting me for food. It was hunting me for recognition. It wanted me to understand what it was before it decided what to do with me. Something changed after that first encounter. It wasn't just me who noticed. The forest noticed me back. Before, the woods were random. Animal trails, broken twigs, the ordinary chaos of nature. But now, everything had a rhythm. The sound of branches cracking wasn't random anymore. They came in patterns. 3 steps, a pause, 2 more. It mirrored the way I breathed, and when I tried to hold my breath, the forest held its breath too. That's when I realized it was copying me. Even the fog seemed to move in sync, pulling in close whenever I stopped, drifting outward whenever I stepped forward. It wasn't just weather anymore. It felt like the forest was exhaling around me, slow and deliberate. The air got heavier. My compass needle started spinning. The GPS, dead. No signal. I tried the emergency beacon I carried in my vest. The light blinked once, then stayed solid red. That beacon had never failed before. The forest wasn't just isolating me. It was interfering. And then came the sound. Not loud, not sudden. It was almost beautiful, like chimes made of bone. It drifted from somewhere up the hill, faint but deliberate. A melody that seemed to repeat one simple tune over and over. I followed it. Every step felt longer than the last, the trees bending just slightly as if to clear a path I didn't ask for. The ground underfoot turned soft, almost sponge-like, and when I looked down, it wasn't moss. It was hair. Short, coarse, dark, like something had shed across the forest floor in every direction. I stopped. I wanted to turn back, but the path behind me was gone, completely gone. The trees had rearranged, not grown, not moved, rearranged. I tried to mark my direction again, carving an X into a nearby trunk. The moment I did, sap started leaking, but not clear sap. It was red, thick, like blood. That was when I dropped the knife, because the tree flinched. The bark shivered around the wound, sealing itself shut, slowly, like it didn't want to bleed in front of me. And all around me, a low hum started. It wasn't mechanical, not quite natural either. It sounded like the vibration you feel through the ground before a thunderstorm hits. Except there was no storm. Just that sound, coming from everywhere. From beneath the roots. I turned, trying to find the direction, And that's when I saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them, all low to the ground. They weren't reflecting my light, they were producing it. Faint white, like glowworms strung between the trees. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. They blinked in perfect unison. Every single one. Open, close, open again. That was the moment I understood. This forest wasn't behaving like nature. It was reacting like a system, like it had a single consciousness. Whatever I saw earlier, the thing that wore skin like bark, wasn't alone. It was a part of something bigger, and I wasn't lost in its woods. I was inside it. At some point, I stopped trying to find a way out. I think that's what it wanted, for me to stop fighting. Because the moment I did, the forest went still again. The hum faded. Even the light from those eyes dimmed and slipped back into the dark. That silence, it wasn't peace. It was observation. I could feel it studying me, the way you study something that finally starts to make sense. And then I saw it. A clearing, circular and perfect, lit by a faint silver light cutting through the fog. In the center, a mound, not of dirt, but of objects. Rusted cameras, compasses, maps, torn backpacks, all tagged, all marked with the same handprint I'd seen earlier carved into the tree. I moved closer and realized it wasn't a mound. It was a shape, a figure, built from the belongings of people who came before me. Boots for legs, torn jackets for skin, camera lenses embedded where eyes should be, a body made of what the forest had taken. And right there, resting at its center, was a notebook, leather-bound, mud-caked, just like mine. I picked it up, and every sound in the forest stopped again. Not quiet, paused, like everything was waiting to see what I'd do next. The first line inside wasn't a note. It was a date. June 3rd, 1996. Under it, a name. And then a sentence that made my stomach twist. If you're reading this, you've already joined it. I flicked through the pages. Drawings of the same handprint, sketches of eyes between roots, detailed notes about how the forest responds to behavior. It described everything I had seen, years before I was even born. Then, on the last page, something handwritten in fresh ink, still wet, my name, the date, today's date. That's when I realized this wasn't a diary I found. It was mine. Or it was going to be. The forest wasn't just trapping people. It was replacing them, absorbing what they knew, what they carried, and using it to lure in the next one. Each new entry, each hunter who thought they were discovering something, was just another echo of the last. Every discovery was already written, every mistake already made, and I was reading the ending before I'd even lived it. That's when I heard my own voice, behind me. Not echoing, speaking, repeating my last words exactly as I'd said them minutes ago. The cadence, the breath, even the fear. And then it said one more line, a line I hadn't spoken yet. You should have left when it gave you the chance. I turned, flashlight trembling, and saw myself, standing among the trees, skin pale, eyes hollow, clothes dripping with mud like I'd just climbed out of the ground. It didn't attack. It just watched, like I was the next piece it needed to finish the story. And that's when I finally understood what "the forest changed me" really meant. It didn't twist my body. It rewrote my place in the world. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the record. Another diary, waiting for someone else to find.
I don't know how long it's been since that night. Could be hours or days. The light here never changes anymore. It's just gray, constant, heavy, like the air's been filtered through ash. My radio's dead. My camera battery died sometime after the second sunrise, or what I think was sunrise. The footage I captured before that, it's different now. When I replay it, I can hear myself breathing, but my mouth never moves. I tried to hike back to the ridge, to follow my GPS track, but every trail leads back here, to this clearing, to this notebook. Every time I try to leave, the forest gives something back to me. A scrap of my shirt, a boot print, once even my own knife, the same one I dropped hours before. The same one, same stain, same bend in the blade. It's like it's returning my things, one piece at a time, as if it's done using them. I've started writing again. I don't even remember when I began, just that the pen was in my hand, and the words were already there. Half the sentences I write aren't mine. They're from someone else's entries. Someone who wrote this before me. And maybe that's the point. Maybe this diary doesn't belong to anyone. Maybe it just borrows us for a while. I can still hear it sometimes. The low hum beneath the ground. The breathing between the trees. But now, it's slower, quieter, like it's sleeping again. I think I understand now. The forest doesn't kill you. It replaces you. Piece by piece, it trades your voice for its own. It learns how you move, how you think, how you speak, and when it's ready, it tells your story through another mouth. So if you're watching this, or if someone ever finds this recording, I need you to listen carefully. You'll hear something in the background, a rhythm, maybe the wind, maybe footsteps. That's not interference. That's it. Listening. It's looking for its next story. So if you ever feel the forest watching you, if the trees seem too still, don't go closer. Don't try to I used to think I understood what wilderness meant. To most people, it's a place, a stretch of untouched land where nature still wins. But now I know better. Wilderness isn't about what's untouched. It's about what touches back. When I first came here, I thought I was chasing answers, trying to prove something lived out here that science hadn't classified yet. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being the one asking the questions. And maybe that's how it always ends. Not with discovery, but with surrender. I've read and reread this diary so many times the pages don't even look like paper anymore, more like skin, warm to the touch. It changes when I stop reading. The handwriting shifts. Some of the words disappear and reappear as if the story's still deciding what to keep. But there's one line that's always the same, written in every version, every hand. The forest doesn't remember names, only voices.
I used to think that meant it forgets us. Now I think it means it keeps us, just not the parts we expect. Every echo that moves through these trees, every whisper that sounds too close. Maybe that's not something alive. Maybe it's just what's left of everyone who tried to understand it. So if anyone finds this diary, or whatever this ends up being, I need you to know, this isn't a warning. Not really. It's just what happens when curiosity turns into devotion. Because once you hear it, once you feel the rhythm beneath your feet, you'll understand why so many of us stayed. It's not fear that keeps you here. It's recognition. You start to see it for what it is. Not a forest, not a creature, but a memory that never stopped growing. And maybe that's what the word cryptid really means. Not a monster we haven't found, but a piece of ourselves we left somewhere we shouldn't have. If these are my last words, then maybe that's all right. Because the forest doesn't end when you walk out of it. It follows. And sometimes, when it's quiet enough, you'll still hear it breathing.